I'm 68 years old. I live in the same house in Eagle Point, Minnesota, where my husband Tom and I raised our only son. Tom's been gone 4 years now, and mostly my life is quiet. I have my quilting circle on Tuesdays, choir practice on Thursdays, and a garden full of hydrangeas that are the envy of the neighborhood. And until last month, I had my late husband's prized possession, a 20-foot crestliner he named the Looney Tune, because he said you'd have to be a little loony to spend that much time fishing for walleye and getting nothing but a sunburn. I never thought my own son, Mark, would be the one to try and send that boat to the bottom of Whispering Lake for a quick insurance payday. He thought he was being clever. He thought his mother was just a silly old woman who wouldn't notice the details. But what he didn't know was that the new security cameras I'd installed, the ones he teased me about, weren't just for watching my prize-winning hydrangeas. They were for watching everything. And that little thread he pulled by sinking that boat unraveled a much bigger, uglier scheme to steal not just an insurance check, but my house, my pension, and my entire life. Quick pause. Subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments so I can say hi next time. It all started when Mark brought Crystal home. He'd been divorced for a couple of years, a messy affair that left him with a mountain of debt and a bruised ego. Then, 3 months ago, Crystal appeared. She was 35, a good 10 years younger than Mark, with immaculate nails, teeth so white they looked like they'd glow in the dark, and a way of touching his arm that seemed more like she was staking a claim than showing affection. My friends in the quilting circle called her the upgrader. I tried to be welcoming. I made my famous 4-cheese lasagna in Tom's old cast iron skillet, the one that's so seasoned it's as smooth as glass. Crystal picked at her salad and asked me about the house's property taxes. "So what's a place like this run you a year, Carol? With the lakefront access, it must be a fortune." She said it with a bright, curious smile, but her eyes were scanning my living room, lingering on the silver-framed photos and the solid oak bookshelf Tom built by hand. Crystal just beamed at her, like she'd recited a beautiful poem. He was so blinded by her attention, he couldn't see the appraisal happening right in front of him. I told her I managed just fine. The house was paid off decades ago, a fact I immediately regretted sharing. The light in her eyes sharpened. A few weeks later, Mark called. "Hey, Mom! Beautiful weekend coming up. Crystal has never really been out on Whispering Lake, and I was thinking, could we borrow the Looney Tune? Just for Saturday afternoon. I'll be so careful, I promise." My heart did a little squeeze. That boat was Tom's baby. He'd spent more time polishing it than he ever spent polishing his own shoes. Every nick and scratch had a story. But Mark was my son. How could I say no? "Of course, sweetie," I said, my voice betraying none of my hesitation. "The keys are in the little blue dish by the door. Just be sure to refuel it before you bring it back." "You're the best, Mom. We'll be by around noon to pick it up." He sounded so happy, so boyish. For a moment, I let myself believe this Crystal person was good for him. That Saturday morning, I was pruning my hydrangeas when they pulled up. Mark was driving his beat-up sedan, and Crystal was in the passenger seat, already wearing a bikini under a flimsy cover-up. She gave me a wave that didn't quite reach her eyes. I watched from the kitchen window as they walked down to the dock. That's when I saw the first strange thing. Mark went back to his car and pulled out 2 gray cinder blocks from the trunk. He and Crystal carried one each down to the boat and loaded them on board. I frowned. Why would they need cinder blocks for a day of cruising on the lake? An anchor, sure, but Tom's boat had a perfectly good anchor. I brushed it off. Maybe they were planning a bonfire on that little sandy patch over at Miller's Point and needed something to weigh down a tarp. I was an expert at making excuses for Mark. They motored away from the dock around 12:30 p.m. I spent the afternoon weeding my vegetable patch and bottling the strawberry jam I'd made the day before. It felt peaceful. I remember thinking how Tom would have loved the calm, sunny day. The call came at 4:15 p.m. It was Mark. His voice choked with panic.
Mom. Oh my God, Mom. I'm so sorry. We hit something. I don't know what it was, a submerged log or something. The boat took on water so fast, we barely had time to call for help before it went down. My blood ran cold. Are you and Crystal okay? Are you hurt? No, we're fine. A passing fishing boat picked us up. We're at the marina now. But the boat, Mom, it's gone. It just sank. I'm so sorry. I could hear Crystal sobbing theatrically in the background. My first instinct was pure relief that they were safe. The boat was just a thing. It could be replaced. Don't you worry about the boat, Mark. As long as you're okay, that's all that matters. I was trying to soothe him, but a tiny cold knot was forming in my stomach. Tom was the most careful boater I ever knew in that lake. He knew every rock, every shoal, every tricky current. He taught Mark everything. Hitting a submerged log in the main channel on a clear day, it felt wrong.
The next morning, a Sunday, I got a call from the insurance company. Mark had already filed the claim. The agent was polite, but very direct. Ma'am, your son filed a claim for the total loss of your 2018 Crestliner boat. The policy is for $42,000. He said it was a submerged object strike. Can you confirm the details of the incident? I wasn't there, I said slowly. My son was operating the vessel. Yes, we have his statement. We'll begin the investigation, but it could take several weeks. With a total loss in a deep water area, recovery isn't always possible. Hanging up the phone, I felt a wave of nausea. $42,000. It was such a specific number. And the speed of it all, the accident, the immediate claim, the cold knot in my stomach was getting bigger. I walked over to my little office nook, where the monitor for my new security system sat. I'd had it installed by a local kid, Ben, just a few weeks prior. 4 simple cameras, one on the front porch, one on the back deck, one on the driveway, and one pointing down toward the lake, covering my dock and a wide swath of my backyard. I told Mark it was to deter package thieves and watch for deer eating my roses. I clicked on the playback function, my fingers trembling slightly. I selected camera 4, the lake view. I set the date to the previous day, Saturday, and the time to 12:15 p.m. The footage was crystal clear, high definition. There was Mark's car pulling up. There were Mark and Crystal walking down the path. There were the cinder blocks. I watched them load them onto the Looney Tune. Then I zoomed in. Just before they untied the boat, Crystal took a blue microfiber cloth from her purse and meticulously wiped down the steering wheel, the throttle, the gauges, every surface her hands or Mark's hands would have touched. She was wearing thin latex gloves. Who wears gloves to go boating on a sunny afternoon? My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't an outing. This was an operation. I kept watching. They motored away, and for hours the dock was empty. Then at 4:30 p.m., about 15 minutes after Mark's frantic call, a car from the local taxi service pulled up at the end of my long driveway, just out of the main camera's view but visible on the edge of the lake cam's frame. Mark and Crystal got out. They weren't hysterical. They weren't wet or disheveled from a dramatic lake rescue. They were strolling, laughing. Crystal kissed him, a long, deep kiss right there at the end of my driveway before they got into his car and drove off. The timeline was all wrong. The story was a lie. My son had lied to me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I sat there in my quiet house, the smell of strawberry jam still faint in the air, and stared at the screen. I saved the footage. I saved it to my computer's hard drive, to a USB stick I kept in my sewing basket, and to a cloud account Ben had set up for me. I saved it 3 times. For the rest of the day, I moved through my house like a ghost. I didn't call Mark. I didn't answer his texts asking if I was okay. What would I even say? I know you sank your father's boat on purpose. I saw the cinder blocks. I saw the gloves. I saw you laughing afterward. The betrayal was so sharp, so complete that I couldn't form the words. I kept thinking about Tom, how proud he was of Mark, how much he loved that boat. And my boy, my son, had sunk it for money. The real bombshell, however, didn't land until Tuesday. I went out to get the mail, and nestled between a seed catalog and the electric bill was a thick, formal-looking envelope from a company I'd never heard of, Pinnacle Financial Advisory Group, out of St. Paul. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely tear it open. Inside was a welcome packet. The letter began, "Dear Carol, we at Pinnacle Financial are pleased to confirm the receipt of your signed documents and welcome you as a new client. As per the durable power of attorney document executed on May 17th, your son and appointed agent, Mark Peterson, has initiated the process of consolidating your retirement portfolios under our management. The first transfer from your First National Bank IRA is scheduled for next week." I read it again, and a third time. Power of attorney, May 17th. I was at my quilting circle on May 17th. I hadn't signed any document. I hadn't even spoken to Mark that day. I fumbled through the packet and found a copy of the power of attorney. There it was, my name, forged in a shaky, unconvincing imitation of my signature. And at the bottom, a notary stamp and a signature from someone named Janice Bell. I've never met a Janice Bell in my life. The boat wasn't the end game. The $42,000 from the insurance wasn't the grand prize. It was seed money. It was a distraction. The real target was my pension, Tom's pension, the nest egg we'd spent 40 years building, the money I was supposed to live on for the rest of my life. And my son was trying to steal it all. Stay till the end. I'll show the truth. My shock turned instantly to a cold, clear fury. This wasn't just my foolish son making a stupid, greedy mistake anymore. This was a calculated, predatory attack. And Crystal, the smiling shark with the perfect teeth, had to be behind it. She was the one who asked about property taxes. She was the one with the gloves. Mark was weak and desperate, but I didn't think he had this level of criminal sophistication in him. I immediately called my bank. I asked for the fraud department and got connected with a woman named Susan, whose calm, no-nonsense voice was the first sane thing I'd heard in days. I told her I believed a fraudulent power of attorney was being used to access my accounts.
"Okay, Mrs. Peterson," she said, and I could hear her typing. "I see a pending transfer request for the full balance of your IRA, initiated by a Mark Peterson as your agent. It was flagged by our security algorithm and put on a temporary hold. That's likely why the advisory group sent you that welcome packet. They were trying to verify your address." Thank God for security algorithms. I felt a sliver of relief. "That POA is a forgery," I said, my voice firmer now. "I never signed it." "I've put an immediate freeze on all your accounts, Mrs. Peterson. Nothing can be moved, withdrawn, or transferred without you coming into the branch in person with 2 forms of photo ID. I'm also flagging the POA in our system as fraudulent. I recommend you file a police report immediately and contact a lawyer." As soon as I hung up with Susan, I called Mr. Davison. He handled our estate planning when Tom was alive and was a man so meticulous. He used a ruler to make sure his desk blotter was perfectly straight. He was semi-retired, but when I told him what was happening, he said, "Carol, I'll be at your house in an hour. Don't talk to Mark. Don't talk to anyone. Just gather every piece of paper you have." While I waited, I started digging. I Googled Janice Bell Notary, Minnesota. A cheap-looking website popped up with a stock photo of a smiling woman. Her listed address was a P.O. box at a UPS store in a town 40 miles away. I called the phone number. It went to a generic voicemail box that hadn't been set up yet. It all screamed fake. Mr. Davison arrived, looking grim. He was a small man with a neat white mustache, and he sat at my kitchen table like a general planning a campaign. I laid it all out for him. The story about the boat, the security footage, the strange welcome packet from Pinnacle Financial, the fake POA. I showed him the footage on my computer. He watched the clip of them loading the cinder blocks and Crystal wiping down the helm, his expression growing darker with every second. He looked at the copy of the POA. "The signature is a decent attempt, but it's not yours. The tremor is all wrong. And this notary, this is the key, Carol. If the notarization is fraudulent, the entire document is worthless." "What do we do?" I asked, feeling helpless for the first time. "We do not react,"
he said, tapping a pen on the table, we prepare. You will continue to act as the grieving, slightly confused mother. Let Mark think he's getting away with it. Let them get comfortable. The more rope they have, the more they will hang themselves with it. You, meanwhile, will be a dragon guarding her hoard. We will document everything. We file a police report tomorrow. We contact the state notary commission. We will tear this down piece by piece. That night, Mark called me. His voice was sticky with fake sympathy. Hey, Mom, just checking in. How are you holding up? I took a deep breath, picturing Mr. Davison's stern face. Oh, Mark, I'm just so sad about the boat. Your father loved it so much. I know, Mom, I know. I feel terrible. It was a freak accident. But hey, that's what insurance is for, right? It'll all be sorted out soon. That little phrase, it'll all be sorted out soon, sent a shiver down my spine. He wasn't talking about the boat. He was talking about my money, my life. He was waiting for the transfer to go through. The little boy I'd taught to ride a bike and bait a hook was now a stranger on the other end of the line, waiting for his mother's finances to be delivered into his hands. And I knew I had to be strong enough and smart enough to stop him. The next week was a masterclass in deception. I played the part of the fragile widow to perfection. When Mark and Crystal stopped by with a pot of soup, "We were so worried about you, Carol." I let them in. I noticed Crystal's eyes darting toward the mail on the hall table, no doubt looking for more bank letters. I had already rerouted all my important mail to a new P.O. box Mr. Davison helped me set up. What she saw was just junk mail I'd left out as a prop. She casually asked if I'd gotten a call from the insurance adjuster yet. I told her that I had, and that he'd said it was a straightforward case. She squeezed Mark's hand in triumph when she thought I wasn't looking. Meanwhile, Mr. Davison and I were working. We filed a report with the county sheriff about the forged POA. The detective assigned to the case, a young woman named Detective Miller, took our statement very seriously. When I told her about the boat and showed her the security footage, she raised an eyebrow. She said insurance fraud is one thing, but coupling it with elder financial abuse and a forged POA, this is a major felony, ma'am. They are trying to steal your entire life. She made a copy of my USB stick. Then we got a break, a huge one. My friend Martha from the quilting circle called me, just bubbling with local gossip. Carol, you will not believe who I saw at the Gilded Lily salon today. Your Mark's new girlfriend, Crystal, dripping in new clothes, getting the most expensive hairstyle they offer. She was on her phone the whole time, talking so loud. She told someone on the other end, and I quote, "The old hen is sad about her little boat, but the real nest egg is about to hatch. He just needs to get the final paperwork from the house."
Martha had no idea what she just handed me, but I did. The final paperwork from the house. It clicked into place with a terrifying certainty. The frozen IRA was a setback for them, but they weren't giving up. They were moving on to the next biggest asset I had, my home, the place where Tom and I had built our lives. They were going to use that fake POA to try and take my house. Keep watching. There will be justice. 2 days later, my fear was confirmed. A certified letter arrived at my P.O. box from the county recorder's office. It was a notice of a pending application for a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, against my property for $250,000. The application had been filed online using a scanned copy of the fraudulent POA as authorization. They had been stopped at the last step. The lender required a signature verification that had to be done in person or confirmed by mail. This letter was that confirmation. If I had been the dotty, grieving old woman they thought I was, I might have missed it. I might have tossed it, or they might have stolen it from my real mailbox. But instead, the letter was now sitting on Mr. Davison's desk, another piece of evidence in our growing arsenal. They weren't just trying to drain my bank account anymore. They were trying to put me on the street. Mr. Davison immediately contacted the lender's fraud department and Detective Miller. Things were escalating quickly. The quiet war of documentation was about to become very real. And then I got a call from the marina. It was Bill, the owner, an old friend of Tom's. "Carol," he said, his voice graveled with concern. "You're not going to believe this. One of my guys was out mapping the depths around Miller Shoal, and his sonar picked up a huge object in shallow water. It's the Looney Tune. It didn't sink in the deep channel like your boy said. It snagged on the locks 20 feet down. It's beat up, but it's mostly intact. It never really sank." It was the first piece of good news I'd had in weeks. The boat wasn't at the bottom of the lake. It was evidence. Tangible, physical evidence. "Bill," I said, my voice low and urgent, "can you get it out of the water?" "It'll be a tricky salvage, Carol, but we can do it. Gonna cost you a pretty penny." "I don't care what it costs, Bill. Get that boat out of the water. And please, don't tell anyone you found it. Not yet." There was a pause. "You got it, Carol. Whatever you need." He knew something was wrong. In a small town like Eagle Point, people know. Now we had the video. We had the forged documents. We had the attempted theft of my retirement and my home equity. And soon we would have the boat itself, the instrument of their first crime dredged up from its watery grave. I went over to my sewing machine and started a new quilting pattern, one with lots of sharp points and dark, angry colors. As my needle flew, I stitched my fury into the fabric. They thought I was a helpless old lady. They were about to find out what a woman with nothing left to lose, a good lawyer, and a high-definition security camera could do. The time for playing defense was over. It was time to set a trap, and I knew just how to bait it. "Don't click away. He'll get what's coming." I picked up the phone and dialed my son. "Mark, sweetie," I said, injecting a note of frazzled worry into my voice. "I got another letter from that financial place. It's all so confusing. I think I need you to come over and explain it to me." He promised to be there the afternoon with Crystal. The trap was set. The following afternoon felt like the longest day of my life. I vacuumed the house, polished the silver-framed photos on the mantel, and put a kettle on for tea, just like any other day. But my hands were trembling, and my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. On my kitchen counter, tucked neatly beside the cookie jar, was a small, high-fidelity digital audio recorder that Detective Miller had given me. "Minnesota is a one-party consent state, Mrs. Peterson," she had explained. "As long as you are a part of the conversation and you consent to record it, it's legal. Just press this button here. Let them talk. They seem to like the sound of their own voices." The plan was simple. I would confront them with the HELOC letter and the Pinnacle financial packet, feigning confusion. Mr. Davison and Detective Miller were convinced Crystal wouldn't be able to resist the urge to incriminate herself by trying to explain the documents to the confused old lady. They would be parked in an unmarked car just down the road, waiting for my pre-arranged text message. The single letter T. For tea. They arrived precisely at 2 p.m. Crystal swept in first, wearing a crisp white pantsuit, looking more like a corporate raider than a sympathetic girlfriend. Mark followed, looking haggard and nervous. "Hey, Mom," he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "Mark, Crystal, thank you so much for coming," I said, my voice the perfect blend of warmth and weary confusion. I led them to the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Mark with his homework for years. I had the fraudulent documents laid out. "I just don't understand any of this," I began, pushing the Pinnacle packet toward them. "This power of attorney, I don't remember signing it." Crystal immediately took charge. She placed her manicured hand over mine. Her skin was cold. "Oh, Carol, sweetie, you're just getting forgetful. We talked all about this a few weeks ago, remember? You were worried about managing your finances, and you wanted Mark to be able to help you. We had Janice, the notary, come right here to the house. You signed it right here at this table." She patted the oak surface as if it were a witness on her side. My blood ran cold at the audacity of her lie, but I kept my face placid. I pressed the tips of my fingers together. "Oh, I must have forgotten. My memory isn't what it used to be." It was the perfect bait. Mark fidgeted. "Yeah, Mom, it's what you wanted."
He still couldn't look at me. He knew. Deep down, he knew the depths of this betrayal. "And this other letter?" I said, sliding the HELOC notification from the county across the table. "A loan against the house? For so much money?" This was Crystal's moment to shine. "That's part of the plan we discussed," she said, her voice bright and persuasive. "The interest rates on your old investments are terrible. We're going to leverage some of the equity in the house to get you into a high-yield fund that Pinnacle manages. It will double your income, Carol. It's for your own good. Mark and I just want to make sure you're taken care of in your old age." I felt the recorder in my apron pocket. I knew I had it. I had her lying about the notary, admitting to the financial plan, admitting to initiating the HELOC application. "Oh, it's just a lot to take in. Would you two like some tea?" "That would be lovely," Crystal said, smiling her shark smile, confident that the deal was sealed. I stood up and went to the counter. With my back to them, I took out my phone and sent the single-letter text, "tea." Then I filled the kettle. As I turned back to the table with 3 mugs, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. A moment later, 2 firm knocks echoed from the front door. Mark and Crystal exchanged a flicker of a confused look. "I'll get that," I said, calmly. I opened the door to find Detective Miller and a uniformed officer. Behind them stood Mr. Davidson, his face like stone, holding his briefcase. "Mrs. Peterson," Detective Miller said, her voice formal, but with a supportive warmth in her eyes, "we have a warrant to discuss a financial crime investigation. May we come in?" I stepped aside and held the door open wide. "Of course, Detective. The people you need to speak with are right in the kitchen." The color drained from Crystal's face as they walked in. Mark looked like he was going to be physically sick. Crystal recovered first, her voice sharp and accusatory. "What is the meaning of this? Carol, who are these people?" "These people are here because of you," I said, my own voice finally steady and clear, all pretense gone. "I didn't forget signing that power of attorney, Crystal. I didn't sign it because I was at my quilting circle that day. And I know you couldn't have been here either because you were busy posting photos of your trip to Las Vegas on Instagram." Mr. Davidson stepped forward and laid a sheaf of papers on the table next to the fraudulent POA. They were printouts of Crystal's public social media profile, showing her posing in front of a Bellagio fountain, time-stamped on the exact day and hour the POA was supposedly notarized in my Minnesota kitchen. The alibi was perfect. "And about Janice Bell, the notary," Detective Miller added, her voice dangerously quiet. "We just picked her up. Turns out she's your aunt, Patricia Doyle, who has 2 prior convictions for fraud in Wisconsin. Her notary stamp is a $10 fake she bought online." Crystal's composure finally shattered. She shot to her feet. "This is insane. You can't prove anything." "Oh, but I think we can," I said, looking not at her, but at my son. "Mark, what about the boat? Your father's boat. Was that also a freak accident?" That's when the uniformed officer spoke up from the doorway. "Sheriff's Department just finished their analysis of the vessel recovered from Miller's Shoal," he announced as if on cue. The boat salvage had been completed that morning, and they had worked fast. They found the cinder blocks. They also found half-inch holes drilled through the hull from the inside, below the waterline. The drill bits match a set found in your son's garage, pursuant to a warrant. Mark let out a sob and collapsed back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. "It was her idea," he whispered, his voice cracking. "All of it. She said we were broke. She said it was the only way. The insurance money, the POA. She planned it all."
"You pathetic worm!" Crystal shrieked at him. She made a move for the back door, but the officer was already there, blocking her path. Detective Miller stepped up to her, holding a pair of handcuffs. "Crystal Miller, also known as Patricia Doyle's niece, you're under arrest for insurance fraud, forgery, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny against a vulnerable adult. You have the right to remain silent." The next few hours were a blur of flashing lights, legal jargon, and the surreal sight of Crystal being led away in handcuffs from my quiet, tidy home.
Mark was also taken in for questioning, but he was cooperating fully, his torrent of confessions and apologies finally unleashed. I sat at my kitchen table with Mr. Davidson, cradling a cold cup of tea in my hands. The war was over. I had won. But I felt no joy, only a profound, hollow sadness for the son I had lost. In the end, the justice was swift and clean. Crystal, facing a mountain of evidence, including her own aunt's testimony against her, took a plea deal. She was part of a larger ring that targeted seniors, and in exchange for a reduced sentence, she gave them up. She's currently serving 7 to 10 years in state prison. Her aunt got 5. The Pinnacle Financial Advisory Group was a shell company they'd set up, and the investigation shut it down completely. For Mark, the path was more complicated. He was charged with conspiracy and insurance fraud. But at my request, and given his full cooperation, the judge was lenient. He received 5 years of probation, 1,000 hours of community service, court-mandated therapy, and an order of full financial restitution to me for the salvage and repair of the boat, plus all my legal fees. He's working 2 jobs now to pay me back. I haven't spoken to him outside of texts from his probation officer. I have disinherited him from my will, leaving everything instead to a local charity that supports abused women. Perhaps one day forgiveness will be possible, but trust is gone forever. Some things, once broken, can't ever be fully repaired. As for me, my life is quiet again, but it's a different kind of quiet. It's the quiet of strength, not solitude. My money is secure, protected by new passwords and alerts that I now understand completely. The fraudulent HELOC application was canceled, the forged power of attorney expunged from all records. I spent a good portion of the spring overseeing the repairs to the Looney Tune. The hull was patched, the engine was serviced, and the interior was redone. It looks better than ever. Last weekend, on a perfect sunny Saturday, I took the boat out myself for the first time. I steered it into the middle of Whispering Lake, the water sparkling around me, and I cut the engine. Sitting there, in the silence, I felt Tom's presence more strongly than I had in years. They had tried to take everything from me, my security, my memories, my home. They saw me as an old woman, a soft target, a footnote in their greedy plans. But they were wrong. We are not invisible. Our life experiences haven't made us weaker. They've forged us into something strong. Like the seasoned cast iron in my kitchen, we know how to read the fine print, how to trust our gut, and how to protect what is ours. And sometimes we even know how to use a high-definition security camera to save our own lives. I started the engine, turned the boat for home, and felt the warm sun on my face. The past was in my wake, and the open water was all mine.
So, another story of my grandmother has end, and be clicking here, you will have when more such stories.